Hi, Debbie. Good morning. Almost afternoon.
Hello all.
No.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Erica.
Hello, Erica.
I don't hear anybody else.
You're not here? Can you hear us? Erica? Can't hear?
Hello. Hello.
Yasmin?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, I can't hear anybody.
Let me call you.
I'm going to hang up and try again.
Hello, Doug. You're muted.
Hi, guys. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Hi, Doug.
All right. Can't hear Yasmin. Erica.
I think I hear everybody now.
How we doing?
You know
Hi,
what? Yasmin just is a technological genius. She just reminded me that maybe my volume was accidentally turned off.
Works.
When it's simple, there's a solution like that. It's like, hopefully that's, a good sign that everything's going to be so simple.
Ready?
We need to start until we can't start officially until noon just due to the public notice.
Okay.
If that's what you were getting at. But it's really nice that we're here so that exactly at noon, we all know that our tiles are aligned. We all know that our audio works, and and I need the extra time because
That's fine.
it's my generation.
We're waiting. We need Derek still.
Oh yes,
And
Derek.
Chairwoman, really quick, I'm not sure if you were able to listen to my voice message or not about item number 8 potentially being moved up to have our Attorney General from the AG's office present for the procurement portion, and she's only available from 12 to 1.
So I've
Okay.
got a change. Yasmin, I have a change there. Are you talking about executive session?
Just for the procurement session on item 8,
Yeah,
Jessica Klein, we want Jessica Klein present, and she's
No, we
only
don't.
available from
No.
12 to 1.
That doesn't matter. That's not going to happen. Either
Okay.
I will either join in there or Nicole will come. And so if the AG's office and the commission doesn't want us to have ADOA house, we will not attend the executive session.
Okay, thank you. Let's
Yep.
keep the agenda as is, and as we discuss it
Good.
at that appropriate time, we'll explain to the commissioners the decision,
Great.
and we'll move forward.
Thank you.
And do we have Pam on the line? Do we have I see Kyle. I want to,
We're waiting for Pam, Derek, and Caroline.
oh, Derek's not there as well. In terms of us being able, Derek, we can get potentially some early business done before Derek joins us. We do have a quorum, but I want to make sure that we don't move forward without appropriate counsel. And I only see Kyle on the call.
Testing. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Very good. Okay. Yeah. So I guess we'll wait a couple minutes for Pam and Caroline to get on.
Okay.
I think I saw Doug just walk through that wall in the background, so. Very interesting technology.
Gotta have his abilities.
Hi, John. Now we have Caroline.
Morning.
Okay, I'm going to give it 2 more minutes to hope that Derek and Pam join us. But if they are not there, I believe we have sufficient representation and a quorum to get started. We have a robust agenda today.
There's Derek.
Commissioner Watchman, welcome. You are still on mute, but I see that you are here with us.
Yep, I am
Okay.
here. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. With that, I am going to call this meeting to order. Item number 1, call to order and roll call. Item 1A, call for quorum. It is 12:02 p.m., Tuesday, March 9th, 2021. I call this meeting of the Independent Redistricting Commission to order. For the record, the administrative assistant will be taking roll. When your name is called, please indicate you are present. If you are unable to respond verbally, we ask that you please type your name. Yasmin.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Commissioner Meal? Commissioner Watchman?
Present.
Commissioner Lerner?
Present.
Commissioner York?
Present.
Commissioner Newberg?
Present.
And then we also have, from the Attorney General's office, we have Kyle Cummings, Caroline Guerrero, John Fry, and Jessica Klein. We also have our transcriber, Debbie Wilkes, on the line. And from ADOA side, we have Director Andy Tobin, Nicole Sorensen, our General Counsel, and Ed Jimenez, our State Procurement Administrator, and myself, Ramos. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Yasmin. Please note for the minutes that a quorum is present. Item 1B, call for notice. Yasmin, was the notice and agenda for the commission meeting properly posted 48 hours in advance of today's meeting?
Yes, it was.
Thank you very much. Item number 2, approval of minutes from the March 2nd, 2021 general session public meeting. As a reminder, a video recording fulfills statutory requirements. Is there any discussion regarding the public session minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the public session minutes from March 2nd?
This is Commissioner Lerner. So move.
Do we have a second?
This is Commissioner York.
I second.
We'll have Commissioner Watchman. Did you say you'll second?
I did. I'm sorry. Commissioner Watchman seconds the motion.
Okay, any further discussion? With that, we'll do a quick vote on the minutes. Commissioner Watchman?
I'm sorry. I got detained here.
We need to approve the minutes, so aye or nay?
I'm sorry. Aye.
Okay, Commissioner Meal?
Aye.
Lerner?
Aye.
York?
Aye.
Newberg is an aye, and with that, the minutes are passed. There were no executive session minutes. Item number 3, opportunity for public comments. Comment will now open at 12:05 p.m. for a minimum of 30 minutes and remain open until the adjournment of the meeting. Comments will only be accepted electronically in writing on the link provided in the notice and agenda for this public meeting and will be limited to 3,000 characters. Please note, members of the commission may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-4310-1H, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. And with that, we will move on to item 4, which is discussion and possible action on interview questions and process/format for executive director hiring. The commission may vote to go into executive session, which will not be open to the public, for the purpose of obtaining legal advice and providing direction to counsel pursuant ARS 38-431.03. So as we stand now, we have a, I think, highly vetted list of fabulous questions that tap into most things. I am aware that there may be additional questions that people are thinking about and want to add. You all have that discretion to do so. And what my suggestion would be in terms of the format, and our hope is to be doing this next week, and we can decide the length of time for the interview after we determine how many candidates we're interviewing. But in terms of format, I envision, the 5 of us going around taking turns. Each commissioner would have an option to ask one question and then have the ability to ask a follow-up question. If there's time to go around twice, we should be prepared to be able to cover, all the different areas that haven't been tapped into. We want to remember the overarching principle that we want enough consistency such that all candidates are treated fairly. So if we carve out niches that we are covering, there's value to continuing that. But there's also room in our follow-up and some spontaneous questions that are unique to the candidate. So we will use our discretion, understanding we don't want to violate any of the employment, laws that John has trained us on. The other thing that I want to mention is that it is our intention that we will hopefully do this first round of interviews next Tuesday at our regularly scheduled meeting at 9 a.m., whatever candidates we select. It's possible and maybe probable that we won't agree on one that day, and that we might want to invite the top 2 or 3 back. I suggest we plan for that possibility today, because with public records, open meeting law, we need to agendize this very early. So one option would be to prepare for the first round of interviews next Tuesday, and then a second round of interviews with only 2, maybe 3, either the Wednesday or Thursday, so that hopefully by 9 days from now, we are able to hire an executive director. So with that, any questions before we go into the specific candidates? Any questions on the process and format of what we're doing with this hiring?
Just as a follow-up, this is Commissioner Lerner, just to make sure that we're clear, because I know I had sent in a few questions that I think got blended in maybe with the ones that had been previously done. Just to clarify on the follow-up piece, if we have follow-up questions, once we ask the first let's say the first candidate, that follow-up, do we need to ask each candidate that same follow-up? Because I have been in things where that's what happens. I just want to make sure we're clear.
So I'll answer, and then maybe I should just let John answer, but my sense is we have the discretion to ask unique questions that are relevant to the candidates, but the spirit of our interview approach ought to be balanced such that all candidates are treated appropriately.
I think that's correct, Chairwoman Newberg and Commissioner. Instincts a little bit. There may be a follow-up question that would have no application or would be odd to ask than other applicants. And you certainly are required to recall an applicant because a question occurred to you with a subsequent applicant that you hadn't asked previously. But to the extent that follow-up question has application to other applicants for consistency's sake, not a bad idea to ask.
Just to clarify, thank you.
I also, to be honest, imagine that if we have a second round of interview, which is likely to happen, we may have a very different set of questions for those final candidates. So we don't presume that this is your only opportunity to be asking, really pointed questions.
This is Commissioner Meal. Commissioner Newberg, I did come up with a question this morning, and I sent it to Yasmin, and I assume she can forward it to others. But it relates to asking specifically about the constitutional priorities that I thought actually was important to add. And it would go under the boundaries role of the executive director, your section 2, as a question under there, if you thought it was appropriate.
Commissioner Meal, yeah, you know what? Consider it added. All commissioners have the discretion to ask these types of questions that I think we all, common sense wise, we've been trained by John to know that it's not going to violate, disability laws or anything like that. So the issue then, Commissioner Meal, is if that's going to be a question of concern, just be consistent across your questions with applicants. But it's a very appropriate question. Any further conversation? I don't think there's anything we need to have a motion on or decide on right now. And I would like to come back to the decision on length of time of the interview and move on to item number 5, unless there's any other further comments or questions. Okay, great. With that, we're going to move on to item 5, discussion and possible action on executive director and other administrative support positions. Before we move into the meat of this, I'd actually like to put aside the less, substantive material. We've had 28 candidates apply for executive assistant position as of March 4th. That position closes on March 12th. I don't think there's any need to take action on that right now, given that we are on the cusp of potentially hiring an executive director. So with that, I'd like to dive in to talk about the process of going through our candidates. You have all received 43 applications with cover letters if they were sent along with them. And extremely importantly, you've received a cover letter where each applicant has been assigned a number. These applicants are entitled to confidentiality until or unless they are invited to come back for an interview. At that point, their names will be released if they consent and desire an interview, and the public would see those names. So as we discuss the candidates, let's be respectful as we discuss their history, to be careful not to comment on truly identifying characteristics. I would also suggest, as we briefly brought up, and last week, that one method might be that we first go around the 5 of us and just share the numbers of the people that you would like to interview. We could look at the commonalities and then go through the strengths and weaknesses as we saw them, and then end up with a vote of who wants to interview these candidates. So how does that process sound to everybody?
Good.
Good.
Okay, awesome. So I am going to start going around the room. I guess we'll stick with just voting order just for the sake of continuity. Commissioner Watchman, can you share the numbers of the people you would like to interview?
Gladly. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have my candidates. The top 5 for me are candidate number 2, candidate number 5, candidate number 15, candidate number 17, and candidate number 36.
Okay. Commissioner Meal.
Candidate number 1, number 13, number 20, number 23, and number 32.
Okay. Commissioner Lerner.
Candidate number, and I did not stick to the 5. Sorry.
You didn't have to. You didn't have to.
Okay. All right. Candidate number 2, number 8, number 15, number 17, number 24, number 36, and number 43.
Okay. And Commissioner York.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My candidates are candidate 1, candidate 13, candidate 22.
Wait, excuse me, did you say 22?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Candidate 32 and candidate 34.
Okay. And I am interested in interviewing candidate 1, candidate 15, candidate 17, candidate 32, candidate 42, and candidate 43. So I have 6.
43. We didn't have 43.
Okay, Commissioner York, this is a very big problem. You're using an outdated numbering system, and you immediately need to find the most recent one that are 43 candidates, because it affects your entire list. Yasmin, to make it easier, if you could just kind of send it to him right now so he could look at that.
Yes, and it's not completely, I think I added the last one to the bottom, but I'll go ahead and send it right away. But I don't think it's numbering.
Everybody's list should have the 43, and the one candidate that was, we weren't sure if she had withdrawn or not. So there is one candidate who's not in alphabetical order, and that's number 43. It is essential people are looking at the same list.
I know who that is, yes.
Okay. So can everybody please confirm that your numbers correspond with this list of 43 candidates, with the last one being out of order?
I can confirm.
Yep.
Okay, so Commissioner York, do you need to change your numbers?
No,
Oh, they're the same numbers?
well, I didn't pick 43. I know that person.
No, but the ordering of them may have changed. So you have confirmed on the new list that it's still the same number. Because the alphabetized list changed, so numbering changed between the two lists.
I thought Yasmin just said she didn't, she sent that, she added that person, that particular applicant to the bottom. Am I right on that?
Yes, that is correct. And that's the one you had asked about, Commissioner
Yes.
York.
Oh, I knew who that person was. They just weren't on the original list. Okay, yeah. So
Okay.
my numbering doesn't
Okay.
change.
Terrific. So here's my suggestion. Yasmin, while we begin, could you please just compile an order of all the candidates that you identified, so we can briefly just discuss what people saw as their strengths and weaknesses and reasons why people wanted to interview them. And then after that, we can come back and vote. So one commonality that I already see is with candidate 1. And so there were 3 of us. I, along with Commissioner Meal and York, obviously found some strengths. So would the other 2 commissioners like to begin by, sharing, what your criteria you used in looking at the applications, what you found attractive about this candidate, what weaknesses you might find, and why you would recommend that we interview these people?
Sure, Meal, you want to start?
No, I'm asking Commissioner York and Meal, because the 2 of you were the ones who recommended candidate 1. The others did not. So I'd like to start with you asking what did you like about this candidate? What were the positives? Were there any negatives? And then we can open up to concerns from the others, but I'd like to hear why you picked this person.
This is Commissioner Meal. They have a very extensive background in a major Arizona government agency. I've talked to several people that know this person and know of their work within that agency, and have talked about the really strong communication ability, a very strong work ethic, a knowledge of the state and open meeting, and it just overall looked like this person had a very strong background and was spoken of very highly by 3 different people that I was able to talk to that knew them.
Commissioner York, anything you want to add?
Just I would add the feedback also that I received was that this person was a people person, the ability to build communication across all party lines, and would do a great job of building consensus and helping the commission move forward on making our decisions.
And what I was attracted to, in addition to the kinds of things that you shared, I thought this candidate wrote a fabulous cover letter, so well written, and demonstrated excellent communication skills, awareness of what this person's strengths and weaknesses were, and a dedication to work in a bipartisan way. Somebody who really knows the communities, somebody who's been a Flynn Brown Fellow. This person could hit the ground running. And I believe this person knows how to work with all sides and would understand limitations where he or she would need to maybe fill out the staff in other ways to compensate. So when you get a talent like that, for me, I want to interview him. That's how I see it. Those who weren't attracted, or I mean, look, it's not attracted, it's making a very top list. I want to emphasize these are all remarkable people and we're looking for such a unique niche. So it's hard, but any overt, objections or things you want to raise, the other commissioners?
Well, this is Commissioner Lerner. As I was looking through, I was doing my best to try to find people who seemed, at least from my knowledge, because I'm not completely connected in the political arena, to be as independent as possible. I'm looking for somebody that has a great deal of that independence. So my concern in this particular case is that this person is clearly independent. Not that that person couldn't work in that way. I'm not saying that they couldn't, but clearly was not. It is not that. So that was I will tell you up front, that was not my primary concern. Certainly the person has a lot of experience, but I look at it as this ED position really needs to be somebody as close to independent as we can get, so that all parties feel very comfortable speaking to that person and knowing that they're going to get a balance from that person. And that when they do their hiring, they will also give that balance.
This is Commissioner Watchman. I guess you asked for anything on the negative side. One of the things that I balance is just, how seasoned is the individual. And so, you can kind of, the seasonality and maybe the age, I'm not supposed to look at it, but, how seasoned is the person. So, qualified, but, more seasoning would help, but, on the negative side for me, but good candidate as well.
One thing I want to say in response, Commissioner Lerner and Watchman, and with regard to, do we find the most independent person? I have to be honest, I didn't see it through that lens. And the reason being, I think we need the most competent person who can transcend any kind of partisan issues. And can we find a group of staff members, and if we limit ourselves to the most brilliant ones just because most of mine had partisan interests. I mean, so do we limit ourselves from the best and the brightest, even if we trust their motivation and even if we commit to each other that there be a diversity of opinion through the broader hires? So I just wanted to share with you, when I did my own struggles about what kind of candidate, and we all have different criteria, I allowed for some partisanship or partisan interest, provided that there's demonstration of an ability to work with everybody and to commit to higher missions. So for that reason, I supported candidate one. The next candidate, Yasmin, in the group.
It would be, are we discussing all of them or just the top ones?
No, we're discussing each one just briefly.
Okay, 2.
Okay, 2 people, Derek and Shireen pick number 2. Do you want to share briefly what you think?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Watchman. I can start. I like candidate number 2 for a couple of reasons. One is their previous work experience with the state. I think that's important, to be able to maneuver with us in the state. And then also have an experience with the Attorney General's office, since our director will have to deal with our lawyers. Then of course the education, working on, looks like their PhD. And so, but I like the fact that they have previous experience with the state government, and I think that's important. So that's my top qualifier. So thank you.
This is Commissioner Lerner. I looked at the range of experience for this person, and they had both state as well as they also had been in a local position as I'm not going to speak to the specifics, but they also had been in local positions they had. So they had a wide range of experience, everywhere from local communities all the way up through the state, and a number of different things where they had been in positions of authority as well, deputy director, director, and so forth. So, and I will say this person, there is partisanship to this person, but I felt based on what I was reading, there was a balance as well in there in terms of things. So as nonpartisan for everybody. So I tried to balance that out. So I just thought that the range of experience here was something, and there was also communications in here, which I thought would be a nice balance as well. So that's what I liked about number 2.
For me, I didn't include number 2. I saw some real potential in number 2. I didn't feel number 2 was as ready to hit the ground running as the other candidates. I felt number 2 would be ready maybe a few months from now. And I just, this unique position requires just really jumping in and knowing how to handle everything right away. So that was a concern of mine. I don't know if anybody else, the other commissioners, want to add any concerns they had.
I would say, just really briefly, this is Commissioner York. My concern as a candidate number 2 was just the amount of job changes over the last 10 years. That was concerning to me.
Okay.
Some things I look for, yes.
Great. Yasmin, we're done with 1, 2. Who's next?
5.
Okay. Who, it was Commissioner Watchman who recommended number 5. Commissioner Watchman, would you like to share?
Yes, Commissioner Watchman here, and thank you, Madam Chair. This candidate, in my opinion, I like because having experience with the governor's office, policy advisor to the legislature, and then working at the county level. So kind of a good knowledge and thorough knowledge of the state government, and having the ability to communicate, being a press person. So I thought those 2 qualities were good qualifiers for me to recommend candidate number 5.
Anybody want to add anything else on a pro or con?
Commissioner Meal, I don't know how blunt we're supposed to be on this. I talked to several people that knew candidate 5 and thought that this person was very difficult to work with.
Okay. Please be candid. That's, as long, I mean, it's numbers, and we're protecting everybody's confidentiality, and we need to protect the integrity of this process. So thank you. Let's move on. What's after number 5?
8.
Okay. Commissioner Lerner has number 8.
Correct. And I will tell you that the main thing that drew me to Commissioner 8, we had a few different people like this, actually, who had experience in things like conflict resolution and collaboration, those kinds of, and there were several actually in our pool that had that. That's what drew me to this particular person. They have worked for the state as well. They have other experiences with agencies, but that was the primary. I will be honest, not the highest on my list, but it is somebody who was on my list for a few of those qualities that I think are important.
I had 2 flags. One was that I felt that I wasn't sure that this person could hit the ground running. And my second was I wasn't sure what this person's been doing for the last few years. But if it's not a priority, I suggest we move on to the next one, because he was, or she was, the only one on your list. So after number 8, Yasmin?
13.
Okay, 13 was on Commissioner Meal and Commissioner Yorks. Would you like to give a recommendation for that?
This is Commissioner York. Candidate 13 did have some experience in engineering and a background in certain aspects that I thought would be important to guide the mapping process. So I was attracted to him for that. Mathematics degree, you know, so.
Commissioner Meal?
As with all the candidates, as I do in my own business when I've hired, I tried to call around, and I heard some good things about this person. I wouldn't put them at the highest of the ones that were on my list. But he did. But there is some good, solid background here. There was a number of people who applied who come out of the education side of the state, and of those, I thought that this was the strongest of the educational background people.
I know this candidate, have known this candidate for a while, and agree with your characterization of this person. My only concern is I'm not sure that he or she is ready to just jump in right now. But really a great candidate, and maybe at the end we could be persuaded to throw one in. But I don't think the candidate, in my eyes, rises to the level of sophistication and experience that I think would be helpful to us. Any concerns from the other commissioners about this candidate?
This is Commissioner Lerner. I just felt that we didn't have enough experience at this point. Just that was my main. It was an interesting background, but I felt that there was a need for a little bit more seasoning.
Right. Okay, what is next, Yasmin?
The next one is 15.
Okay. Whose list? Oh, so 15 was on Commissioner Watchman, Commissioner Lerner, and Commissioner Newberg. So who would like to start?
I can start. This is Commissioner Watchman. You mentioned hitting the ground running. This candidate is a previous employee of the commission in 2 capacities, and so I think this person definitely would.
Commissioner Watchman, please be careful about identifying criteria.
Okay. Well, previous association and extensive experience with the Arizona government and obviously the education. So, but this person, I believe, could hit the ground running, and I'll just stop there. So.
Okay, thank you.
This is Commissioner Lerner. That's how I felt. There's a lot of experience here working with the government, and I know that, and to me, that was a priority all the way through, because we had talked about the fact that we want people with government experience who can work. And I always looked for local, state, county kind of government. That's part of what I was looking for. I just feel this person could jump in and get going pretty quickly with the background that the person has.
And I share your sentiments. I feel this person understands the job. It could competently, successfully manage the job. I think this person, can handle conflict and tension, can really get along with people, can kind of serve as that connector type that, we need in a team, and I think really deserves an interview, given the unique contributions I think this person can make. That's my sense. Any opposition or any concerns on the other side?
My concern was I really appreciated this candidate's experience. My concern, considering the last process was not completely flawless, that maybe the optics of reintroducing this candidate back into the process might be a problem. That was my concern.
I share the concern, but from a slightly different perspective. My perspective is, you know, each process is unique, and we want, you know, the opportunity to learn, but have fresh new eyes. And you know, we need to make sure that somebody's going to be, you know, serving our team with our vision of what that team is. But that's something that could, you know, certainly be vetted and discussed. So any other comments with 17? Otherwise, Yasmin, the next candidate, please.
That was actually 15, and the next one is 17. The next one is 17, though.
Yes, who did? Okay, so Commissioner Watchman was 17, Commissioner Lerner was 17, and Commissioner Newberg is 17. Lerner and Watchman, please share.
So this is Commissioner Lerner. I felt that this person had a great deal of experience in, again, in government, in administration. I don't want to be specific about the places that the person has worked, right. But the person certainly would seem to know both state and county level kinds of, has worked in both state and county, and even governor, and just a variety of different places. And I feel could be, just could have a good deal of experience that they could bring to the table as part of it. And worth just an interview, if nothing else.
Commissioner Watchman, anything you want to add to that?
No, I guess Commissioner Watchman here, basically I echo what Commissioner Lerner has stated, worth an interview. The experience that this person has, I think, would be a potential candidate. So, you know, worth an interview.
Yeah, I personally was very attracted to this person's significant experience with state legislature, this person's willingness to work all across the aisle. The cover letter was so well written, which again is just like providing a writing sample, a great communicator. And so I think this person has talent and is consistent with, you know, I'm not afraid to be interviewing people that may have some partisan inclinations for the sake of finding that dynamic right person with, I want to note, the commitment to balance out the rest of the staff to reflect the diversity of our state. So that is why I wanted to support number 17. Is any concerns from the other commissioners?
Commissioner Meal, I would say that if you're looking at partisan background, this is one of the more partisan backgrounds we're going to see. So I will have to laugh at my Commissioner Lerner on this one.
I knew that. I thought that, but you know, I'm willing to go with one and go with one.
And the current position that they've been in has also been other negative.
You can laugh at me or with me.
It's, you know, and look, we acknowledge that. And I think I applaud all of you for just being transparent and open about how you're processing these applications, because again, I'm not afraid of a partisan inclination. We all can put aside, you know, alternative pulls or interests for the sake of a common mission that transcends that. And at the end of the day, our question is, who's the best person with the greatest skills who can transcend their past experience and help us accomplish our task. And I want the best and the brightest. So with that, acknowledging that there's, maybe not straight down the middle. After number 17, where are we, Yasmin?
20.
And Commissioner Newberg, I do want to clarify,
Yes.
my big issue there was with the controversy of the current position. I was laughing about the
Okay,
the partisan side, because I am supporting several candidates that also have a partisan side to them. So,
okay. After number 17,
20.
did you say 20?
Yes, 20.
Okay, who recommended 20?
I was the only one on 20, and that person's not the highest on my list, and with no other support, I'm fine with passing.
Okay, so let's move on. What's after 20?
22. And that's Commissioner York.
And I believe you were the only one, Commissioner York.
I was. This candidate was attracted to me a lot from his experience in the professional industry and running different associations. And so I was thinking that perhaps that would be a need for the executive director at some point, that they'd have to be able to manage to that, and had some experience in that. So that was the attraction for this candidate.
I wasn't opposed to the candidate. I felt the candidate did not rise to the level of the other candidates.
Kind of agree with that.
Okay, so let's take that. Yeah, that person will not be in consideration. And who is after that?
23. And that
Okay.
was Commissioner Meal.
Once again, I'm the lone supporter of candidate 23, and that is the most partisan on my list. A partisan background. I actually have heard very, very good things about this person. But I think with no other support, I'm fine moving on.
Great person.
Yeah, I've heard good things about this candidate as well.
Yeah, not in my eyes, just not the right fit. Who is after that?
24. And that would be Commissioner Lerner.
And apparently I'm the only one here, so I will also do the same as others, where when I'm the only one, I was attracted to this person because of their background. I thought they had some interesting things that they could bring to this. And different, mentioned education early on with one of the candidates. I saw that with this one too, so I kind of liked that perspective. But being the only one here, it's also not the top.
Okay.
And I will mention just, there were a number of candidates who would fit other positions that we are going to need. And it would be interesting to have that. There's some that would fit some of the other things we're looking at, deputies or finance or, some of those things. That's one of the things I loved about this pool, was the variety of people who had some of those other skill sets.
I agree with you 100%, Commissioner Lerner, and let's do this first hire, and then after that, we can strategically think how to fill in the rest of the staff such that representation is achieved and balance. But I think we just have to start right now with picking the best and the brightest to really get us off to this next start. So who is next on the list, Yasmin?
32, and that's by Commissioner Newberg, Commissioner Meal, and Commissioner York.
Neil and York, please start.
There you go.
I thought this was one of the stronger candidates on the list. Very strong background with his current position. And again, I've heard extremely good things about his communication skills, ability to get along with others, ability to get along with people in both parties. He has a strong working relationship with people from both parties. And I heard a number of very, very positive things on this candidate.
Commissioner York, I would add to that. I mean, he's a seasoned applicant and would represent the state well. I believe in his current capacity, it's a pretty neutral government job, and I think this would just extend to help us do a better job as a council, the commission. I'm sorry.
I too felt that this person is really pragmatic, really gets along, effective, efficient, well-regarded, and somebody that somebody in my mind I'd like to take a look at, who could hit the ground running and do this job. Any concerns? Okay, Yasmin, the next.
The next one would be 34, and that was Commissioner York.
Yes, this is my last choice. Probably not my strongest choice, since I was the only person that recommended him. I liked his experience on a national level. I liked his optics into what could be going on in the future and help us with some decision making. But like I said, it wasn't my strongest choice.
If nobody else selected this candidate, I suggest we move on.
The next one is 36, and that is Commissioner Watchman and Commissioner Lerner.
I'm just pulling that person's name up. So Commissioner Watchman wants to go before me.
Yeah, I selected this person as a person to interview for a couple of reasons. One, again, experience with the government in several capacities. I thought that was good. The cover letter, well, there's no cover letter actually. Wrong notes here. But also having experience in data analysis and data review. I thought that was important, especially for the mapping. And then just the education. So for me, this individual would be a good person to interview. Kind of my middle candidate, but I thought someone that is worth talking to.
I was attracted to the things that the two of you are talking about. I'd like to share that just in kind of looking into candidates. I heard some feedback that maybe, you know, this person might not be the best fit just in terms of, you know, collegiality and consensus and other things. I mean, and so for me, given that this person didn't rise to the level of the others that I was interested in, I left this person off my list.
So this is Commissioner Lerner. And that's an important point that you heard. I did not do the due diligence that either you or Commissioner Veal did in terms of calling people about some of these. But I was really impressed with the experience in terms of what we need for this. I thought that this person had quite a bit of things that were related very closely to what we're going to be involved in. That was why I said, you know, if we need to move forward without the person, that's fine. But I do feel they had quite a few strengths in working at the federal, state, county level, and working in the area that we're going to be working in as well, in terms of understanding. I'm trying not to be specific, understanding some of the issues that we need to. So that's why I felt that they were a fairly strong candidate, or could be. But again, I didn't do that other piece that you just commented on.
Look, if you and Commissioner Watchman feel this is somebody we ought to really look into, and I like to give people real opportunity. It's not going to, my sense is we're not going to have a huge list next week to interview. So if there's somebody that's important to you, I'd like to know that.
As we finish through these, I guess I'll know where my top priorities are. I'm kind of going through.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd like to keep this person on the list.
Okay.
If we get down to that point, I think this candidate has potential with all the attributes that we're discussing. So if we could, I'd like to
Okay,
This is Eric, this is Commissioner York.
yes.
The only concern I had with this candidate, it had lots of experience, but I was concerned maybe it wasn't enough at the state government level. There's a lot of stuff at other levels in government. And so that was my concern when I looked at this.
Thank you. Okay, next number.
42, and that's was selected by you, Chairwoman.
I'm the only one that picked 42. Okay. Well, then, you know what? I saw a dynamic person with an entrepreneurial spirit, but not important enough. So we're done.
Well, Commissioner Newberg, I apparently had, I had also had 42, and I had not read that one out. So my apologies for that. I think I was getting nervous on how many I had because I didn't keep to the 5. I did like that person, but I found, I will say that I didn't feel that they had as much government experience. That may be why they were on my first list. And then I was a little concerned about, because I have been focusing on government experience, that person didn't have as much as other candidates, but I felt they had some great leadership experience. And that's what attracted me to that person. But then because I was using government as one of my criteria, that's why I had, when I started thinking I had too many, I pulled that person off. But if there's an opportunity, I think this person has great leadership skills.
Yeah, but based on what you're saying, I want to share, I actually had a concern. This person was on my bubble because the cover letter was not impressive as a writing sample for me. And that, you know, I'm a stickler, as just my background. I want communication to be, you know, done in a certain way. So given that there's not a lot of consensus, you know, I think we can move on.
Okay.
Last one, I believe, was 43. Was anybody else who? I suggested 43. Okay, let's cross this person off.
Now, I had 43 on my list as well.
Okay.
That was, I think I had mentioned 43. I had not mentioned 42 because I had been concerned about that.
Oh, you did.
I did list 43 also because I thought that they had, but I mean, if you go into much detail with this, but I thought they had some good, again, executive experience in this case. And I thought that they also had experience with state government that could help us. So, and public affairs, I thought they brought quite a bit of interesting experience as part of this. So, you know, and that's what attracted me to this particular person. Just a range of experience too, not just in one field, but they had a variety of things.
Agree. And any opposition or? All right, so, you know, in some way.
I have one question regarding candidate 43. My concern is that, yeah, the experience is broad, but maybe it's in the wrong areas that we're looking for as we go forward from an executive director standpoint, and considering that, I don't know, I felt I needed a little more state background. That was my concern.
Okay. I feel that I am ready to vote on the candidates where we could list them one by one. And if a majority would like to interview them, they'll be interviewed. And if there's less than a majority, they will not be interviewed. Does that sound appropriate, Counsel and John?
This is John. I'll defer to Pam on the procedural question. Process-wise, that makes sense to me.
Okay. Unless we hear opposition, let's go through the numbers again. I'm sorry, Yasmin, but this can be very quick because I believe that you know, we're very thoughtful of what we want. So let's at least start with candidate number 1. We'll go do it. I think we have to vote all 5 of us each time. I
So there
believe.
were a
Okay.
couple of them that I believe were removed from the list, just to confirm, 8, 20, 22, 23, 24, and 30, 34, and 42. Is
Okay,
that correct?
can you just quickly recite the numbers that we're gonna vote on?
1, 2, 5, 13, 15, 17, 32, 36, and 43.
Okay, excellent. So we are going to do a very quick vote going around the 5 of us on each of these candidates. Candidate number 1, Commissioner Watchman.
I vote yes.
Commissioner Meal,
Yes.
Commissioner Lerner,
Yes.
Commissioner York.
Yes.
Commissioner Newberg is a yes. 1 is unanimous to be interviewed. Candidate number 2, Commissioner Watchman.
I vote yes.
Commissioner Meal,
Yes.
Commissioner Lerner,
Yes.
Commissioner York,
No.
and Commissioner Newberg is a no as well, but the majority rules. We will interview candidate number 2. Candidate number 5, Commissioner Watchman,
No.
Meal,
No.
Lerner,
No.
York,
No.
and Newberg is a no. Number 5 is crossed off. On number 13,
Yes.
Commissioner Lerner,
No.
Commissioner Meal,
Yes.
Commissioner York,
Yes.
Commissioner Newberg is a no. I believe it's 3-2, so we will interview number 13. Number 15, Commissioner Watchman,
Yes.
Commissioner Lerner. I'm sorry, Commissioner Meal. I'm looking at your
No.
Commissioner Lerner,
Yes.
Commissioner York,
Yes.
Commissioner Newberg is a, are we on number 5? Yes, I am a yes, and so number 15 will be interviewed. We are now on number 17. Commissioner Watchman,
Yes.
Commissioner Meal,
No.
Commissioner Lerner,
Yes.
Commissioner York,
No.
and Commissioner Newberg is a yes. And so we will be interviewing number 17. Number 32, Commissioner Watchman,
Yes.
Commissioner Meal,
Yes.
Commissioner Lerner,
Yes.
Commissioner York.
Yes.
Commissioner Newberg is a yes. We'll be interviewing number 32. Number 36, Commissioner Watchman,
Yes.
Commissioner Meal,
No.
Commissioner Lerner,
Yes.
Commissioner York.
I'd say no.
Commissioner Newberg is a no. We will take 36 off the list. Number 43. Actually, was 42 was crossed off. 43, Commissioner Watchman,
No.
Commissioner Meal,
No.
Commissioner Lerner,
Yes.
Commissioner York,
No.
Commissioner Newberg is a no, and so 43 is taken off. We will be inviting candidates 1, 2, 13, 15, 17, and 32. So 6 final candidates.
Commissioner Newberg, is it possible to change a vote on one? I would like to reconsider my vote on number 13. If that would be allowed, and then we would be down to 5 candidates to interview.
And so you would like to remove your support for candidate 13, and I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a list of 1, 2, 15, 17, 32. Okay, do I have, so I think that the process now is we will need a motion to support inviting these candidates to an interview, preferably if we can accommodate everybody's schedules, next Tuesday at 9. What we would also like to do, so that if we would like to keep open the possibility of having an executive director next week, is to look at our calendars, which we will not do right now, but to see if we can schedule a second interview opportunity for these 5 candidates for either that Wednesday or Thursday, the 17th or 18th, because I'm guessing that we may, get very close, but we may want to call back a couple of people to ask, kind of additional, targeted questions. So let's not look at our calendar right now. I just wanted to highlight kind of what we should expect in terms of the interview process.
Commissioner Newberg,
Yes.
we have not decided the length of the interviews either at this point, correct?
Correct. So now that we have identified that we will be interviewing 5 candidates, does anybody have, an idea in mind of what you feel the appropriate length of time would be?
My opinion would be it'd be at least 20 minutes and no more than a half hour.
Any other thoughts?
Can we recall, and maybe Commissioner Newberg, you can recall, were you given, when we did the independent interview, was that a 30-minute? Did they give a time frame? I don't remember if we did.
To be honest, I don't recall ever receiving a time limit. So unfortunately not.
I tend to agree with Commissioner York. I think a 30-minute time limit would be sufficient.
Okay.
On this as well. We should be able to get enough information to know if we'd want to call them back from them.
30 minutes sounds appropriate for me.
I agree. Commissioner Watchman agrees.
Okay. So do we need we need a motion to move forward to interview these 5 candidates that we selected. We will request interviews starting. We are scheduled for our typical meeting at 9 a.m. next Tuesday. We may have some additional business. So to accommodate the people who are applying, we will do our best to see when they're available next Tuesday, and hope to get it as efficiently scheduled per our normal meetings as possible. We'll plan for half-hour intervals with 5 minutes to give us a little buffer.
Commissioner Newberg, should we be planning on a little bit longer meeting next week? If we're going to want to have some time after the interviews to discuss on whether we want to bring anybody back?
When you say a longer meeting, I'm not sure it'll be longer than today's meeting. I mean, I think we should expect robust agendas every single week. And so what that means, I can't give you a number of hours, but yeah, I mean, there'll be extra demands next week.
Well, I'm only looking at it would be 2.5 hours in interviews. And then if we have additional topics to discuss and also want to discuss the candidates, that's why I was asking if we should
Yes.
sort of, prepare for potentially a little longer.
Yes.
That's what I mean.
I think that would be ideal if the commissioners could block most of the day aside of next week, such that we can complete our business. I don't expect the business outside of these interviews to be as robust as it is today, just as an advance notice. Okay, so what, actually, I need a advisement from counsel, given that we just did an official vote. What kind of motion do we need in terms of just moving forward? I guess a generic motion to move forward with interviewing those 5 candidates with the format that we talked about. Do I have a motion?
This is Commissioner York. I propose a motion that we move forward with the interview process for candidate 1, candidate 2, candidate 15, candidate 17, and candidate 32 for the executive director position for the Independent Redistricting Council. The interviews will be set for March 16th, approximately at 9:30 in the morning. Each interview will last roughly a half an hour.
Excellent. Well done. Do I have a second?
Commissioner Lerner, well done. I second.
Okay, with that, we'll do a quick vote. Commissioner Watchman,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Lerner,
Aye.
York,
Aye.
Newberg is an aye, and we look forward to extending interview opportunities and interviewing our candidates next Tuesday, and we hope they will accept, at which point their names will go public. I just saw John Fry pop up. Is there something, John, that you want to add to this?
Just that, with your permission, Chairwoman, if you're done with that agenda item, I was just going to excuse myself.
Yes.
Okay. Good to see you all. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Okay, excellent work. With that, we're going to move on to agenda item number 6, discussion on public comments received prior to today's March 9th meeting. We had 4 comments that have come in. Thank you, everybody. Very positive, informative. I think people are appreciating our effort to do as much as we can in the public eye. And the other comment that I'd like to share that I've heard is to, again, as we think through building out our staff, that we keep an eye on diversity such that, well, actually 2 things. I mean, I think the comments are coming from the perspective of wanting representation of our constituents in Arizona. As a leader, I actually come at it from the perspective of, I know data-wise that decisions are better when there's a diversity of opinion. And so we would improve, I believe, the quality of our work if we ensure that we have a diversity of opinion. So we hear the public comments. Thank you for all of them. Any other comment on the comments? Okay, excellent. With that, we'll move on to agenda item number 7, discussion and possible action on data census delay and ways to mitigate its disruption. I had a very productive conversation last week with Bo Duell from the Secretary of State office. She is the Election Services Director, and she just really gave me a rundown of what the calendar should look like. And without getting into the weeds, because I believe we'll need to invite them back for a more comprehensive, kind of meeting to collaborate, it's important for us to keep January 2nd as a date in mind. So April 4th of 2022 is the deadline for candidates to file their nominating petitions. There's a tremendous amount of work that the Secretary of State's office has to do logistically with reprogramming everybody into their new districts, after all of, the census information comes in. So the feedback that I have heard is that in an ideal world, if we could get the Secretary of State's office maps that have been approved by January 2nd, we would be doing our state a great service. That is a ideal date. Let's focus on that. And from there, we'll do our best. So unless there's other questions, we ready to move on?
Commissioner Newberg, just a question. Last time we heard about a bill that was going through the legislature that would potentially allow, if you had been getting signatures from people outside of your district. Is that still moving? Do we know anything about that? That might help a little bit.
I'll leave it to counsel to maybe fill in, but my sense is this is really irrelevant to what we're doing, because even if the candidates are able to file in previous districts, they will still need to prove a certain number of petitions from the new district that they want to run in. And so the state may work to help give them a little more wiggle room. But at the end of the day, the candidates in the state would be best served if we aim for that January 2nd deadline to the closest that we can. It's an ideal date. We'll deal with the realities, the state will deal with it, but I think we should, in our own minds, particularly as we think about, the holiday breaks in December, it may be an extremely busy time. Okay, with that, let us move to item number 13, discussion and possible action on securing legal counsel. The RFP closes on March 19th. We are going to have a couple of presentations. First, 8A, we have a presentation or overview of past commission litigation matters provided by AGO Legal Counsel for the purpose of helping us understand really the most significant criteria we ought to be thinking about when we're hiring legal counsel.
Okay, testing. Afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, Kyle.
Okay, all right. Don't know if the webcam's showing me on my screen. I can't see myself or anything, so if you can't see me, I apologize. And if I'm looking at another screen to look at my notes, I apologize for that as well. But so as the chairwoman said, this is just a very general overview of the past cases that the last IRC commission saw go through the court system. So it's a fairly straightforward thing, since there were 5 discrete cases that came before the not before the IRC, but went through the court and involved the IRC. So 3 of them actually went through the Arizona State Court system. 2 of them actually went through the federal court system all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States. So first, I'll just focus on the Arizona cases, close to home for us. So the first one I'd want to just look at is, and also, of course, if anyone has any questions, then feel free to chime in at any point. So first case I want to look at is Montgomery versus Mathis. And that was a case that had a ruling come out in 2012 from the Arizona Court of Appeals. And the background on that case was that it involved an open meeting law investigation. There was an allegation that there had been serial discussions amongst the commissioners outside of a public meeting. And so a state agency, originally the Attorney General's office, later the Maricopa County Attorney's office, were investigating that allegation, and they sought information from the IRC. The IRC pushed back on disclosing some of this information, and that wound up in a court battle over whether it needed to be disclosed or not. And the court ultimately made a number of findings on this case, first of which was that, yes, the IRC is in fact required to comply with open meeting law requirements, and also that the communications that were at issue, that insofar, and I'm quoting here, insofar as they pertain to the hiring of the mapping consultants this information is not protected by legislative privilege. However, in that case, the court ultimately decided that the investigating agency had not shown a reasonable cause why the investigation needed to continue, and so the court ordered that investigation halted. So that was that first case, Montgomery versus Mathis, and it didn't go any further than that, just to the Court of Appeals. The next case from Arizona, the IRC versus Brewer, that actually went all the way up to the Arizona Supreme Court. That case involved a situation in which the Arizona governor at the time removed the IRC chairperson from the commission. And basically the IRC filed suit to get that removal overturned. And basically, just for some more background, the governor was making allegations and based that removal that basically what they termed as being improper conduct, or that the chairperson had not fulfilled her duty. And the court actually came down and disagreed with the governor on that. And basically, an interesting thing is that the court differentiated certain aspects of the case, saying that the court cannot step into the governor's role and basically decide whether or not to remove someone from the IRC. But what the court can do is to determine whether or not the governor actually has authority and is operating within the bounds of the law. And that's because under the law, the governor has, I believe, 3 discrete instances in which an IRC person on the IRC can be removed from the commission. And in this case, the court ruled that the governor had not stated grounds within the law that would allow for the removal of the IRC chairperson. So in that case, the IRC chairperson was reinstated. And that was the Arizona Supreme Court case. Now, I know we've kind of gone in order from the Court of Appeals to the Arizona Supreme Court. The final case only actually went to the Arizona Superior Court. And I've just left that one for last in the Arizona cases, just because it had the most recent ruling, which was actually in March of 2017. And that case was Leach versus IRC. And in that case, the plaintiffs actually challenged the procedure that the IRC followed in mapping and drafting up its maps. And that's interesting, it's just because they didn't challenge the maps themselves, just the procedure used. And in that case, there was also some allegations of open meeting law violations with, I believe it was 2 different sets of potential violations, that there had been serial communications amongst commissioners outside of a public meeting, and also that there had been some manner of quorum, well, not some manner, that there had been a quorum formed outside of a public meeting, and that decisions had been made amongst that quorum. So the courts ultimately addressed both issues and ruled that the record had first demonstrated that, yes, the commission had in fact followed its procedural requirements that the Constitution in Arizona required it to, and also that there had been no evidence that actually supported the open meeting law violations. And, you know, it laid out the requirements and procedures and just looked at the record to determine if there had been violations of open meeting law or not. So, that being said, those are the Arizona cases. So, as I mentioned at the start, the other 2 cases were federal court cases, and they started at the district court level and went all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. Now, the first of those that I wanted to look at was the Arizona State Legislature versus the IRC. And in that case, the Arizona State Legislature basically challenged the constitutionality of the IRC's authority to draw congressional district maps. Now, and their basis for arguing that it was unconstitutional was they said that they pointed to a section of the United States Constitution and said that this section indicates that only a state legislature has the authority to draw the congressional district maps, and therefore any maps the IRC draws of the congressional districts is invalid because they argued the IRC did not have the authority to do that. And the court disagreed with that interpretation that the state legislature put forward, and basically ruled and went through a fairly detailed analysis of the constitutional provisions in question, determined that, yes, IRC does in fact have the authority in this case to draw congressional district maps. Now, That was,
Was that a 5-4 vote?
pardon me?
Was that a 5-4 vote?
I did not check on that, just.
Yeah, yeah.
I think so.
I think so too.
I think so. Yeah.
Well, with that being said, though, so I will say on our last Supreme Court case, I don't know if that was a 5-4 vote either, but for this one, that is Harris v. versus the IRC. That was a 2016 ruling. And in this case, the maps of the IRC were actually challenged in that case. And just a quote from the case itself, a general summary, a group of Arizona voters challenged a redistricting plan for the state's legislature on the ground that the plan's districts are insufficiently equal in population. So in summation, basically the plaintiffs were saying that, hey, these maps don't meet the standards that they have to, and therefore are invalid. And basically the court disagreed with that. And it was kind of a nuanced ruling, basically saying, well, plaintiffs, you can't just depend on the point at these numbers and disparities and deviations and say, well, this means that there must be something wrong with the maps. The deviations are too small. You have to provide other evidence showing that there's a problem. And plaintiffs, you have not done so. And therefore, the court came down and said that, yes, the IRC, and, well, excuse me, I was jumping ahead of myself. The court also went through the record and looked at the evidence and determined that, yes, the IRC had in fact made good faith efforts to comply with the standards that need to be met for the maps. And as a result, they found that the plans did not, well, the plans and maps did in fact meet the standards. So all that being said, those are the cases. And I think just two general takeaways from that is that, as you know, the IRC is subject to open meeting laws, and that they can in fact rise to the level of court cases. So it's not just a discrete, well, was there a violation of open meeting law? No, it can in fact wind up in court battle. So something to keep in mind going forward involving open meeting laws. And it's just a very general statement. You know, these 5 cases, you know, they had a wide variety of issues, but overall, there are standards and procedures that the IRC has to bear in mind when you guys are carrying out your responsibilities. So all that being said, you know, if you have, feel free to ask me. And also I did email to Yasmin the PDFs of the 5 cases if the commissioners want to review them and just read through them yourselves. So, questions or...
Any follow-up questions? You know, thank you, Kyle. I think that was an excellent overview of, you know, just us thinking about what we're needing in legal counsel, what you know, what kind of services they provide, that grounds us. So any questions?
This is Commissioner Lerner. Thank you, Kyle. That was very helpful. I would like if Yasmin could email those out, it'd be interesting, you know, and to take a closer look at that, but I appreciate the summary.
You're very welcome. Okay. If further questions, I will take myself off the camera here.
Thank you very much, Kyle. If there are no further questions, we'll move on to item 8B, training on methods of selecting legal counsel, which will be provided by our state procurement office.
Afternoon, everybody. This is Ed Jimenez. I think I presented an overview to you folks before of the state procurement office, so good to see you all again. And so real quick today, I'll do a quick run through on where we are with 2 solicitations that are in play, one on legal, one on the mapping consulting. So both are services type procurements, if you would. And as Ms. Newberg stated earlier, the legal proposal is due on 3/19, and so that's the schedule for that one. The schedule for the mapping consultant is 3/26. So both are coming in this month. We've gone through the process of, you know, generating or getting the proposal solicitation out on the street. So that activity is done. We've identified some criteria for evaluating for the team, the the evaluation process, the criteria for those processes, those things are available to the team, and the proposals, once they come in, these things are available to you. If we wanted to get into the details of the evaluation criteria, that would be in an executive session discussion. So that's kind of where we are with the proposal process. And things are on track. We had really good assistance from the AG office on the legal statement of work, the evaluation criteria. So we had some good help there. On the mapping consultants, we basically followed the previous activity from the last 10 years and use that evaluation criteria. Both areas are open for discussion with this team here, and that's where we are in the process.
Madam Chairwoman, may I jump in on Ed's comments there for ADOA?
Of course.
So I am the Chief Procurement Officer in the state. I delegate my authority to Ed, who manages our procurement office. So I just want to make sure that that we were clear that you folks are independent, and we've got an opinion that is unclear from the state AG's office that you don't have procurement authority of your own. So the reason I wanted to be here on today's meeting was to share with you that 10 years ago, the ADOA State Procurement Office delegated that authority, like I do through Ed to many of our agencies, directly to the Independent Redistricting Commission. So I do this because I want to make sure our pathways are clear. Remember, I am a political appointee of the executive. I am running his administration office. So it's important that, to me, that we have a very clear understanding of our role. And we are a technical resource for you. We are here to assist get the Independent Redistricting Commission off the ground and do it properly. And in that spirit, I wanted to share with you that I have issued a letter today for to authorize the Independent Redistricting Commission to have procurement authority unto themselves. And I wanted to share that with you because the idea is that it's our goal, and it's Ed's goal and the State Procurement Office's goal to get you as far down the road as we can, according to our own rules. But at some point in time, we have to get out of the way. I mean, there's a place in time where you folks get to make those decisions, and we get to move out of the way. And if you have state procurement authority, I feel more comfortable that you can make those decisions yourselves. And so go ahead.
Commissioner Tobin, we understand your interest. Thank you so much for the services you've provided us. We are equally committed to moving as expeditiously as possible. With that, I would like the authority to explain to my commissioners a couple of options that we have as it relates to legal counsel to first find out whether or not this whole procurement issue needs to be addressed.
Great.
With that, unless there's anything else with item number 8B, I would like to move to item 8C, discussion, consideration, and possible action on method of selecting legal counsel. Okay, so this is actually quite a complicated conversation based on all of my learning. And as you're hearing from Commissioner Tobin, there is not necessarily a consensus of views amongst all agencies and people with opinions on what level of authority we have. At the end of the day, I know we have a lot of authority, but you have to weigh whether or not it's worth having to fight for it if it's at the risk of compromising legitimacy. My understanding with hiring legal counsel are there two main options that are legitimate and sound and responsible. One option, number two, is for us to go through the list of legal firms who have already contracted with our state. They've been vetted, and the state is comfortable. We wouldn't just hire based on that list. We would have the authority to identify the top firms that we, feel could handle our job. And we would determine the interview process. They would come in and do oral presentations. We would control the process through which we would evaluate them and select them. That is option 2. If you see the law firms that you're comfortable with and like on option 2, you ought to make that mark right now, because that is the simplest, most expeditious way for us to do our hiring, where we're entirely in control of the process, where everybody agrees on the rules. Option number 3, and we are voting today on which option we're going to move forward on, the state RFP process. If we commit to going through that process, we are committed to going through their ranking, and we will go through that today with timing allowed, meaning we'll prioritize the criteria that we're looking for. And we will be, looking at all of these proposals that come in that are objectively ranked as empirically as possible based on the criteria that we determine. We are authorized to invite firms, if we want further clarification, to do oral presentations. But at the end of the day, the advice that I have received from counsel is that it's generally expected that we would be bound to go through that empirical process of the ranking. So it's not like we could do what we just did with the executive direct. We could discuss strengths and weaknesses, but at the end of the day, we'd be plugging in what our numbers are, and there would be an objective empirical determination of the choice. Now, we could fight that option 3 and say, you know what, we don't like the advice we're getting, and we actually think we have the authority. Sure. But you know what? Do you want to go down that route and complicate things? And, my sense is, and I'm going to call my call on the table. I've identified 3 firms that I'd be interested in calling in to give oral presentations. They're all on option 2. They all have relationships with the state already. And I'd be comfortable, if the commissioners were comfortable, not even going the procurement route. But if you don't see the law firm that you want to propose, and they're going to be going through the RFP process, and that's really important, and we'll decide what route we're going to go on, we're going to have to follow the state guidelines unless we fight for something otherwise. And with that, if there are differences of opinions, or if the council wants to chime in to correct anything I may have said incorrectly, we'll open it up to the commissioners for questions.
This is Commissioner
Mr.
Lerner.
Reed? No,
Oh, sorry.
go ahead, Sheree.
Go ahead if you want to, Commissioner Reel.
I just wanted a clarification on option 1, just a quick review, 1, 2, 3.
Well, option 1 is remaining with the councils we already have at the Attorney General's office. Option 1 is going with the State Attorney General's office. The reason why I didn't highlight it right now is just because in our past conversations, the commission has generally given the sentiment that we're not interested in that route, but we can certainly consider it if you would like to.
I just missed what option 1 was, so thank you.
Right.
Chair, if I could just interrupt for a moment. This is Pamela Pizer. Just so it is clear to everyone, though, if the commission was to go with option 1, we would look to bifurcate the representation and get outside counsel for the substantive items that the commission deals with. And that would be the things like the mapping and the elections related items.
Thank you, Pam.
This is Commissioner Lerner. I am unsure why we are having to make this decision today. I do not feel I have the knowledge. I have looked at the list of firms. I don't feel I have the knowledge at this point to make a decision. I didn't know we were, maybe it was on the agenda and I missed it. I did not know we were going to vote on this today. So I guess I would want to have time to do a little more investigating of the firms that are on the list before I decided those are the only firms I want to see. I don't have any problem following procurement guidelines. I've done a lot of that with hiring where you have to vote and score and all of those kinds of things. So I'm not opposed to going through the state RFP process. And we already have until March 19th anyway. And next week is going to be taken up with the executive director. So I guess I would like a little bit more time so I can actually take a look at that list that we already have that's up there and know a little bit more about each firm other than what the list that we received. All we have is I guess that's my point right now, my question right now.
Yeah. Commissioner Lerner, here's what I learned and why we don't have more time. So the state seeks to have the rankings done in advance of the position's closing, because if you wait until the position closes and then you rank after that, there's a risk of people adjusting their empirical assessments based on who they know applied. So in the effort of having it be as empirically based as possible, they like us to go through the ranking process now. Now, I think there's a question maybe that if we commit, so if we want to go through the RFP process, I think we need to commit to do that today and begin to rank. I think there is a question, if we choose today to go through the RFP process to keep that process open as a possibility, if next week, after due diligence of seeing if your preferred law firms are in fact on that list, can we then next week say, thank you so much for the RFP process, but we're going to go our own way?
This is Heiser. I would defer to either Ms. Klein or Mr. Jimenez on that.
Well, yeah, I can jump in. So the 319 date is when we expect to see who responds to the solicitation. There's always a timeline in there for the evaluation. So there is time available, and you can build in a couple weeks, 3 weeks, whatever we want to do for this evaluation period. If that helps this committee, that's an easy process. And you would then get an opportunity to see who all submitted their solicitation, and give you plenty of time to go through and review those. So that's open for you folks as well.
This is Commissioner Meal. I'm curious as to what criteria the state uses in its ranking and whether that would really be helpful to us or not.
Yeah, so I can address that. So we came up with the evaluation criteria, as I mentioned earlier, with help from the AG office on how to do the selection criteria and make those decisions. And that's a piece we haven't shared, I don't believe, with you folks, because we'd rather share that in an executive session. And so that's available for review.
And correct me if I'm wrong, we can do that in this meeting because we have an agenda item number 8D, evaluation of requests for proposals, where we have alerted in the agenda that we might go into executive session. So if we decide we want to pursue this route potentially, do we have that authority to do so today?
Yes, I have the data available, and if you all want to spend time to do that, we can do that.
So this is Commissioner Lerner. It sounds like we actually have a little more flexibility than we thought. Which makes me feel a little more comfortable. with all of with this process, just so that I feel like I would have a little more time to do my homework on this. But it sounds like from what you're saying, Mr. Jimenez, that we do have some flexibility where we don't necessarily have to make that decision finalized today about 2 or 3, which is what I assume we're choosing between one of those 2. But that if we choose to go with 3, then 2 the next time, we would still be okay. Is that correct, or am I misreading that?
Yeah, we can open up a time frame for option 3 that allows enough time for the evaluation process. And if you want 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we can allow that in our timeline schedule.
Okay, can I ask, because I had a different sense from, just other conversations. I don't know, Pam or Caroline, is there anything you want to add about the value of making that decision about going to option 2 or 3? Because I was led to believe that there was some kind of reason for why we should be making that decision today.
Well, this is Pamela Pizer. The initial point in the decision would be to limit the amount of resources that are being utilized going forward. ADOA is providing resources in the RFP. If it's not needed, I presume they would choose not to continue on. I would have to defer to ADOA on whether or not you could complete the procurement process and keep those names on deck for a future purpose. I don't believe with the way the RFP was written that that's a possibility, but I would defer to them on that answer. In terms of making a decision today, though, if, it's a question of how quickly you want to have outside counsel, assuming that's the choice, on board, you do have the benefit that the census is delayed, so that's provided some additional time. So things are not necessarily as rushed for the substantive work that the IRC does.
Is there anything that ADOA wants to clarify?
Ed, do you have anything you want to clarify on this issue? I think they're talking about holding on to information beyond for however long. Do you have anything you want to clarify?
No, it's our role to provide the customer service, and we have the solicitations that are out there. It's live. First one's scheduled again on the 19th. We can set a timeline that allows you opportunity to review all the bids that come in, all the solicitations that we receive, and that gives you time to review who came in on this. And we can, like I said, we can do up to 2 weeks, 3 weeks, should you need that amount of time. I understand, Director Tobin, option 2 is taking an existing list of contract legal services. I understand that piece, but this is about, you're the customer. We're open to help whichever way you folks would like to go.
Okay, but Madam Chairwoman and members of the board, it's our effort to accelerate this process for you and get out of the way. It's independent for a reason. And we feel like we're doing our job to get that information to you, get that word out. I believe you have the information that you need to select from. Where did we make the announcements for those to apply, Ed?
The announcement for the legal services is on the state procurement website, and that's the link that's on the slide here.
Yeah.
Jasmine can provide to you, and the mapping consultants was done in our Arizona procurement system, APP, and all that information is available to you folks. It's available out there. It's public. Again, this will be available on 3/19 for the legal, and we can turn this over to you folks, and you can use the information how you'd like to on your folks going forward. And so that's available for you folks. Same with the mapping consultant on 326.
I would like to make a proposal, just given what I'm hearing where people are at. So if we just wait till next week and we make an explicit decision of which option we take, it's incumbent upon the commissioners to know, is your law firm on that pre-existing condition list? And we tell ADOA, do nothing between now and then. Don't move towards ranking. Let's not invest energy or effort so we're not draining your services. I'm hearing next week we decide, okay, you know what? We don't like the list on option 2. We want to go with the RFP process. I'm hearing that there would be sufficient time for ADOA to work with us through that process. And this week would not add any additional burden on ADOA.
So Ed, can I ask you a question? Is there like, is number option 2 and 3 are 2 different lists, because option 2 is an old list and the new list is option 3? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, option 2 is what's currently under state contract director.
Yeah, the old list. Basically.
Yeah, that's what's in our system today. Option 3 has that it was sent to all the same parties in addition to additional law firms as well.
Right.
So it'll be a little bit bigger list.
Yeah. That's what I wanted. Yeah. So we've gone out for bid to create the most options we could possibly find in option 3 for you folks. That's what we did. So, you know, we're not here to make recommendations for you, but the broadest review that you could get is us putting a solicitation out on your behalf that says, here's all those who were interested. Go make a decision. If you want us to help some more, we will. But I've delegated you authority to do what you please.
So this is Commissioner York. Thank you, Director Tobin.
Yeah.
Commissioner Newberg, I believe that based on this information and from what I can understand from the clarification from Director Tobin, that we should just proceed to consider option 3 and then see what those RFPs bring in, and after next week make an evaluation.
Then I would suggest that we move into agenda item 8D, so that if we're keeping the hope alive of moving forward with the RFP, that we would go through our rankings. Would that be effective, or a waste of time if we're not entirely 100% sure of moving forward with option 2 or 3? Thoughts?
Who's ranking? The Department of Administration is doing the ranking?
We were going to receive some additional counsel to learn and then in executive session actually go through some of our rankings with what our criteria are. The benefit of doing that in executive session is you're not telegraphing that to all the firms that are sending in proposals to know, you know, what our top priorities are. Otherwise, they would be able to you know, craft their proposals based on what they're hearing from us. But if we're very seriously going down the RFP route, I think there's value today in beginning the process so that we don't slow ourselves down.
I would agree with that, and I would like to head down that path.
And I concur as well, that it's worth at least looking at that at this point, so we don't slow up, and then we can make a final decision next week, I assume.
Works for me. Yeah, Madam Chairwoman and members, we're here to serve you until you don't need us anymore. Part of my job is to help you not need us anymore. So we're here to help. Are you talking about going into executive session now to discuss those items? or not?
Yes, it sounds like consensus is that we would like to move forward with exploring the ranking in executive session. Unless, or, if anybody else has any other guidance or concerns, that would be my suggestion. Yes, Commissioner Tobin, Director Tobin.
I've been advised by your counsel that my attorney is not allowed to go into executive session with me. And I'm not going to have my staff go in without me and my lawyer to executive session. So
Okay, Director Tobin, let's first see if we're going to go into executive session. Do I have a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of getting legal counsel on evaluating requests for proposals?
So moved. This is
Could I
Commissioner
get
Wood.
a clarification? I'm sorry. Are you wanting to get counsel on evaluating the proposals, or are you wanting to actually do the evaluations? If I understand the procurement process in general correctly, those would be two different things.
My understanding is doing the rankings such that we are out that done. That is my understanding of this.
If I could, let me add some clarification. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Yes. So what we were going to share with this committee is the evaluation criteria that we have come up with, and then I was going to suggest that this evaluation committee can change the ranking of the different categories based on where you feel the importance is. So on the mapping, we use the same criteria as the last time around. That's real simple. On the legal side of the house, we use some assistance from the AG office. Those haven't been given points or rankings. The hope was to do that with you folks, or let you folks go ahead and do that. You can choose your own scoring.
Correct. And my sense is that there are grounds to do that work in executive session. And that is what we're talking about.
And I'm sorry to interrupt again, just so it is clear that the agenda was specified going into executive session for the purposes of outside counsel, but not for the mapping evaluations. So that would need to be put off.
No mapping conversation. I don't believe anybody's talking about mapping. Okay, so
I'll second the motion. This is Commissioner Watchman. I'll second the motion that Commissioner Lerner put on the table. To
go into executive session to evaluate requests for proposals. Any further discussion? With that, we'll do a vote. Commissioner Watchman.
Aye.
Commissioner Meal.
Aye.
Commissioner Lerner.
Aye.
Commissioner York.
Aye.
Commissioner Newberg is an aye. We will move to go into executive session, and please note that it will be a different link. Any other further direction from staff on this?
Can we take a bio?
Oh, yes, please. We'll do a 10-minute break. We're cruel. Okay.
All right. Yasmin, you're gonna send us another link, right?
It should be on your calendar, and I actually did send it earlier today, the bulk of the links, so you should have it in your email.
And should we leave this call and then rejoin it later?
Yes.
Okay.
Chair Newberg.
She left the meeting.
She left.
Okay, I think we're,
Well, that sounded
Sorry,
terrible.
Commissioner York, I had to mute you. There was some feedback we were getting from yours. Oh, he left.
are we waiting for Pam?
I believe she's on.
I am here.
Okay, so Pam, we are back in general session and all 5 commissioners are here.
Chairwoman, before the adjournment, there was discussion about going into executive session. I don't believe that that was wrapped up.
Okay, I apologize.
Director Tobin did want to have his attorney with Ed in executive session. And I don't believe it was clear just from all the conversation that ADOA is welcome to have their attorney, which is the Attorney General's office, in executive session as far as answering questions for the discussion of the confidential materials.
Madam Chairwoman, that is not.
Yes.
The Attorney General is always, we have a great relationship. I have General Counsel and myself who are here. And that's who we want to have this conversation with Ed. What Pamela's trying to do is say that only the Attorney General's office assigned to ADOA can represent us, which I totally disagree with your evaluation. So our answer is that as long as Nicole and I, Nicole Sorensen, General Counsel, ADOA, can join us then we're happy to be there. And that's all there is to it. So Pamela doesn't want Nicole in the room. I don't understand why.
Commissioner Tobin, for the sake of council and the commissioners, can you please outline your reasoning for why these people should be included in executive session as it relates to state statute?
Sure. I am the designee with State Procurement Authority. Ed is designated by me as the director of SPO. My general counsel, who I rely on to assist me and my staff, who attends all of these meetings that I'm attending with, and our staff as well, is our chief general counsel. And that's who I use for my legal advice. And that's why I don't go into these sessions without her. Using the Attorney General's review that suggests that I don't have general counsel at all is absurd. And so that's the reason.
Counsel, can you please respond why you feel that participation is inappropriate?
Under ARS 41-192, I believe, the Attorney General's office is legislatively designated to be counsel of record for the Arizona Department of Administration. As far as entering executive session, only persons who are reasonably necessary. Sorry, I'm going to the provision in the statute. Their presence needs to be reasonably necessary in order for the public body to carry out its executive session responsibilities as those that occur in executive session. So, you know, the statute for counsel of record is clear. Unfortunately, that's the way the legislature has left it, so that's the way it is. And then as far as executive session, anybody to, assuming it's been properly agendized, that can provide the articulation that they are reasonably necessary for the public body to carry out its duties, it may be there.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. She's my general counsel, and you are not, Pamela.
And I understand Ms. Sorensen is indeed general counsel for
Right.
ADOA. Unfortunately, under the Arizona revised statutes, she's not considered the Department of Administration's legal counsel.
Well, under that scenario, I don't have legal representation under any circumstances, and why should I ever have counsel? So I think the interpretation that you're hearing from the AG's office representative here is first off unnecessary, and it clearly we only even got this interpretation here recently. So I don't think that was very fair. So we could have this conversation prior to this. So I would ask that the Independent Redistricting Commission can do what they want. They can vote to allow us in. I don't know what harm it would be, but they have to allow us into this session. We're only going to be here to represent your interests or ADOA's interest to support you. So I think Pamela has gone too far, and I would ask the commission to go ahead and admit our counsel and myself.
Chair Newberg.
Pam, can you please clarify, would you and your colleagues walk out if Commissioner Tobin and his counsel participated?
If Director Tobin is welcome to have Ms. Klein, who is an Attorney General's office attorney, present with Mr. Jimenez to deal with the confidential records. That's not an issue at all. However, if the Attorney General's office believes that there's an open meeting violation that is going to occur, then we cannot be there when that violation is occurring and would have to leave. But Ms. Klein, there's no issue on our end with Ms. Klein being there. It's my understanding that she represents the Department of Administration in the procurement matters. And this is her bailiwick, so to speak.
Ms. Sorensen represents me as well in procurement matters and represents me as well all the way through the process in procurement matters. So, and as does Jessica Klein. I think this is ridiculous. We're having this conversation at the time and expense for the IRC. And they can move to, I do not see how this violates open meeting law. It was indicated on your agenda that you would potentially go into executive session. So I see no violation here.
Well, I would like to share with my commissioners that I err on the side of abundance of caution with going with our legal counsel. And if there is any question that something may present a problem, I would rather go on the safe side. And so I think that we are going to have to weigh in on this difference of opinion about whether or not we're comfortable with having ADOA counsel join us in the executive session. There is a significant risk that if we allow that our counsel will walk out.
So let me make this clear then, Chairwoman, as well. I'm not going to leave my staff on the call without ADOA counsel. If we had more time from the AG's office to have discussed this, maybe we could have come to a solution before this morning. And maybe we should just let us go back to general session, and we can meet with the AG's office another time and try to move it along. I'm happy to leave the information that Ed was going to present with you and Jessica Klein. Maybe she can share that with you, because I really don't want to slow you down.
Right.
If I could just, I guess, maybe clarify, I am not saying that Director Tobin is not allowed to have Ms. Sorensen provide internal advice, but she can't provide advice on behalf of the agency.
That's ridiculous. We're not outside of the agency. The director of the agency is in your meeting. I'm entitled to counsel.
You know, I understand that this is a sensitive, complicated conflict about jurisdiction here, but as the chair of this specific commission with our specific mission, selfishly, I'm going to come back and say what I feel is in our best interest is to do what's safe and to err on the side of caution and respect the legal advice we are receiving at this point, because I don't want to delay this process. We need independent staff and representation. And with that, at the risk of losing our representation, I would like to recommend that we go into executive session in the manner through which the Attorney General's counsels are comfortable.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we need a motion, and I don't know if we need to make explicit in this motion who is invited to go to executive session and who is not. And if so, I would like counsel to make those clarifications.
Maybe I could get a clarification. Are you following the AG's advice, or are you saying that you are not?
I am following the AG's advice.
Based on that, then the appropriate people to go into the executive session to do the rankings on the evaluation criteria, and I may be using those procurement words too loosely, but to do those rankings in executive session would be the commission, the secretary that's been assigned from ADOA, whoever would be presenting the information on behalf of ADOA regarding the RFP, and then those people who are reasonably necessary to assist Mr. Jimenez with carrying that out.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I appreciate it. And we'll make sure we email all of that data that Ed has to all of the committee members so that you all have what we were going to present.
Okay, Ed is going to present. Yes, he is included in this executive session,
No.
Director Tobin.
No, I do not feel comfortable with my staff coming in there under this rule that the AG's office has. In theory, if Nicole wasn't a lawyer and I just had her represent me, nobody would argue, I'm guessing. But this makes no sense to me. So.
Okay, Director Tobin, are you aware that this decision will delay our process?
I'm disappointed because we worked very hard to accelerate this process, to be notified by the Attorney General just before this meeting that they were not going to be supporting me having counsel there. So I'm sorry, but we've been working with you guys all week long to achieve this. So we just want to be helpful. And I feel compelled to protect my staff and my that work for me. And so I'm going to email all of Ed's stuff to you. Jessica Klein is the Attorney General's attorney who helps us in procurement. I'm sure she could come in and visit with you and explain it.
Director Tobin, this is Jessica Klein. I am here if needed.
Okay. Well, then Ed can send the email in to the data that we prepared, and Jessica, since you're with the AG, I think you can explain what we've done.
Director Tobin, this exact issue came up approximately 6 weeks ago. And at that time, and I believe it was the January 21st meeting or 22nd meeting, And at that time, we discussed with Ms. Sorensen her purpose in executive session.
Yes, because at the time it said I should be appointing an acting executive director. And I didn't see anything like that required that, and I declined. That's when that situation came up. So I see that's very different here.
You know, I find I want to share as the chair of this commission, as just a citizen volunteer. I'm disappointed that the 5 commissioners are having to experience conflicting guidance amongst our professionals. We are just singularly focused with advancing our mission with as much integrity as possible. I want to reiterate, just based on past mistakes over the past years, I believe erring on the side of caution is best. I'm going with the council's advice, I feel is very important. And if ADOA is not comfortable following through with item number AD, we can reconvene and figure out a way in which we can receive that information.
Madam Chairwoman and members of this commission, you know we are available to meet and help assist you at a moment's notice, and we've always been there. So this is I regret that this is the stand that this assistant attorney general is taking, and I apologize for it. It could have been maybe handled better earlier, and I apologize for that to this commission too. I'm happy to have to pursue this conversation at another time at your convenience.
I'd like to get some feedback from the other commissioners and actually from our staff about the efficiency of moving forward with any conversation about item number D, or if collectively we feel that it's best to shelve this till next week. It will not slow down our executive director hire, and I do not believe it will ultimately slow down our hire of legal counsel.
Commissioner Newberg, is this, if we think that this can get resolved in the next week so that we would know how to get into executive session, then I would say it's fine with me to delay that. It also gives us some time for all of us that we had received as well. So combination of.
Sure. I'll have that information sent to Commissioner Lerner and to all the commissioners so that you can see it, so that won't delay the process as best we can, so that you can see what we were planning.
So, Pam, I'd like to hear from you. Would it make sense to maybe shelve 8D until next week without slowing the process down?
Commissioner Newberg, and we lost, oh, never mind, we got him back. Sorry about that.
If the RFP is not closed yet, I think that it can be shelved without too much of a delay. But one, and I would have to defer to Ms. Klein on this. Once the RFP itself closes, I believe that certain things have to be done, you know, on each side of that closing to comply with the procurement code.
Pam, this is Jessica Klein. Just generally speaking, you can make changes to the solicitation before the offer due date and time, and you can cancel the solicitation at any time. So if after you get those offers in, you decide that you just want to choose somebody off the list, you can do that at that time with the full range of options, as Director Tobin and Mr. Jimenez said earlier.
So my understanding is that we can table till next week the decision of option 2 and option 3, with the very serious responsibility of the commissioners to research the list of firms that have already been vetted and approved by the state in option 2. And that if we choose to go through option 3, we will have to move forward with process 8D to now, I would hope that some consensus about the appropriate representation from the AG's office and ADOA. And it is my understanding that the strategy would not slow the process down in any way. Am I correct?
Yes, and just for clarification, even though ADOA didn't go into executive session today, we will still be forwarding the information along to the commission.
Thank you.
May I provide an additional point of clarification along the lines of what Yasmin just added in?
If you introduce yourself, because my tiles are all messed up and I can't see who's speaking.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair. This is Nicole Sorensen, General Counsel of ADOA. As Yasmin pointed out, we do have the materials available to present at the meeting. We're happy to share those with you. Now they already have them, or Yasmin may already have them. And so if you would like to discuss those options among yourselves in executive session with the assistance of Assistant Attorney General Jessica Klein, who is very well versed in procurement, that may also be helpful for you if you did not want to wait until next week.
And would that arrangement satisfy ADOA and AG?
Yes, I'm fine with that. None of my staff would be in that meeting without a lawyer, so I'm fine with that.
Pam?
I didn't catch everything that Ms. Sorensen said. It was kind of soft and some of it broke up. I apologize for that. So I heard.
Sure, I'm happy to clarify.
Fine, sorry.
Okay, this is Nicole Sorensen.
Yes, that's better now.
Pam, what I was suggesting was that we are willing to share the 1 or 2 page slide that identifies the criteria options for the commission to consider without us personally present at the executive session. And then the commission is welcome to consider the advice of Assistant Attorney General Jessica Klein, who's obviously well-versed in procurement, for assistance during that executive session.
That would be fine.
I had already shared that earlier, but we're fine with that.
Okay, so under those circumstances, would it make sense then for us to move into executive session for item number 8D, the evaluation of requests for proposals, RFP for the procurement of legal counsel? Do we have grounds to be comfortable with who is invited into that executive session?
I'm assuming the question was directed towards me, woman.
Yes, Pam, please.
Okay, sorry, I apologize. Yes, Ms. Klein can come in as an Assistant Attorney General who represents ADOA.
Okay, so with this, I believe
advice to provide the procurement advice to ADOA.
I'm sorry, no, I just want to clarify, Pam. Jessica Klein would be not representing ADOA necessarily. She'd be representing the commission in helping them to interpret advice. As I understand, the Attorney General's office represents the commission as well.
Correct.
That is correct, and I'm sorry I didn't articulate that very well. Ms. Klein has substantive knowledge regarding the procurement processes and is best able to explain them.
Okay, so are we now at consensus about who is invited to come to an executive session for us to move forward with the evaluations of the RFPs?
Yes.
Okay, do we need to explicitly mention the names?
That would typically be done on the record in executive session.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't catch the exact name, but let's include that in the motion. And to go into executive session with inviting the particular representative that we've been discussing.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
With that, a quick vote. Commissioner Watchman,
No.
no to go into executive session?
That's correct.
Okay, Neil,
Aye.
Lerner,
Aye.
York,
Aye.
Newberg is an aye, 4-1. We will move now to go into executive session. And I don't want to prematurely end the call. So Pam, you let me know when I can move into the other link.
This is Pamela Pizer again. I think that would be fine.
Okay, thank you.
we are.
It's quicker than moving from room to room.
On Google, no doubt.
Yeah.
Most of us use Zoom, so it's a different deal.
Or WebEx. Kind of got all of them.
Okay. There she is. You're muting.
Can't hear you.
Right. For whatever reason with technology, sometimes one computer's camera doesn't work, but the other one does. So here we are. Welcome back to our public meeting. Do we have everybody necessary on call? We have Pam. We have all commissioners.
Jessica. Yasmin.
Do we need, I don't believe with our next agenda item, we need anybody from ADOA. So with that, if we could just sum up what we just discussed in executive session and what our conclusions are with regard to moving forward with legal.
If I could stop you, there's no discussion of executive session unless
Okay.
to be a vote based on executive session.
Okay, I would like to just give direction about our strategy of moving forward. And
Yes.
with that strategy, it is possible for us to keep open option 2 and 3, and we will reconvene next week. We can learn from the RFP process, and at any point, if we decide that we no longer need the full services of going through that process, we can move into our independent hire, and we will make that determination next week. And that was an excellent, productive conversation about the various processes that are available to us. And I feel very confident that we're going to be able to get all the information we need to make excellent decisions about our legal counsel. With that, is there any other conversation before we move on to agenda item number 9, which is discussion and possible action on mapping consulting support? Okay, excellent. Along that front, the RFP on the mapping consultant is scheduled to close on March 26th. And so given the, extension of that deadline, there's nothing on my end that I feel that we need to discuss unless that's on anybody's list.
No.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to item number 10, discussion and possible action on budget. I have no new updates. If there's any questions or comments.
No.
With that, we'll move to item number 11, discussion and possible action on bill paying of incurred expenses. 11A, we do have one new bill from our transcription. So we will need a motion to approve paying that bill. And any discussion.
This is Commissioner York. I motion to approve and pay the invoice dated 3/1 from Miller Certified Reporting for the independent redistricting commission.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Watchman seconds.
Any conversation? With that, a vote, Commissioner Watchman,
Aye.
Meal,
Aye.
Lerner,
Aye.
York,
Aye.
Newberg is an aye, and with that, we've authorized the payment of the bill on March 1st. We'll move on to item number 12, discussion on ADOA resources and updates. We're touching base on IT, human resources, procurement, finance, and facilities. The only update I have for the fellow commissioners is we have been approached by ADOA to move forward with getting our badges. That will allow us the security of entering our physical building, per our, comfort. And they're, doing all of that paperwork to make sure that's in place. And I'll be in touch if there are specific logistical things you need to do to get on their list. But I'm hopeful a couple of weeks after we have an executive director, we can begin to move into our physical location and will be authorized to access that location as a workspace. Any updates from ADOA or any questions on those 5 items?
No update from me, just that the facility is ready to be moved into.
Awesome.
Okay, excellent. With that, we'll move to item number 13, update, discussion, and possible action on Howard open meeting law complaint provided by ADOA legal counsel. The commission may vote to go into executive session, which will not be open to the public. The purpose of obtaining legal advice specifically related to the Howard open meeting law complaint, ARS 38-431.03A3. We did earmark this last week as a topic that we might want to get more legal advice on. And so we do have the ability to go into executive session to seek more counsel on this. Let's actually first open it up to counsel if there's a public meeting update, and then we can address that second, whether there's a need for executive session.
Thank you. This is Pamela Pizer with the Attorney General's office. I did make contact with Deputy County Attorney Colleen Connor from the Pinal County Attorney's office. She is the Deputy County Attorney who has been assigned to this particular investigation. I let her know that I was going to have to meet with the commission during an open meeting before I could tell her anything else. But at this point, the initial thing to determine is whether or not the commission wants to, or how the commission wishes to progress with the investigation. The options are to use the Attorney General's office. The second option is outside counsel. And then the third option is not using counsel at all, but instead the commission, either through a designated person, executive director, or even if the commission wishes to address it as a group, would then respond to the investigation. But in terms of the substantive investigation, so far there's been no specific inquiries made that I'm aware of.
Would the commissioners like to go into executive session to ask any more pointed legal questions about this open case? Okay, the general consensus. I know that the transcription person is there's no verbal acknowledgements, but I would like to acknowledge that I visually saw all 4 commissioners, and there were, no's. No desire to get an update on this in executive session. And so with that, we will move on to item number, unless Pam, there's something else you want to add?
what would be helpful would be if the commission wants to make a determination as to whether or not they want to go it alone, have the Attorney General's office continue to represent them on this, or to hire outside counsel. That would allow me to pass on to the investigating attorney who to contact during the course of the investigation.
For my sense, Pam, wouldn't it make sense for the AG's office to continue to handle this until we hire outside counsel?
Yes.
And that is, I should say, a fourth option, continue with the AG's office as you have been until you have outside counsel, and then you can reevaluate it from there. I say obviously, although maybe for some people it's not, but obviously if there's a change in representation, if I get anything, I would pass it along. So it's not like, a change of address where you get someone's mail and then nothing ever happens to it.
So this is Commissioner Meal. I move that we continue with the AG's office for now for this investigation.
Yeah, I think there's overwhelming consent to the motion.
You do need a vote, and then if you wish to clarify, if you want me to work with the whole commission if stuff comes up, or a point of contact, that will make it, or that's one way to expedite the matter should something come up.
I would,
Okay.
Commissioner Meal, I would amend my motion to add that Chairwoman Newberg would be the point of contact for the AG's office in this matter.
Do we have a second?
This is Commissioner Lerner. I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? Commissioner Watchman, a vote, aye or nay?
I vote aye.
Commissioner Meal?
Aye.
Lerner?
Aye.
York?
Aye.
Newberg is an aye, and with that, we ask the AG's office to continue to represent us on the Howard complaint, and that I will be a point of contact to address further matters on that. With that, we'll move on to agenda item number 14, a discussion of future agenda item requests. I think we need to clarify here that first we're going to be discussing our already regular session that we had scheduled for March 16th. Obviously, looking on the agenda, we may want to keep, most of the items on there, but particularly include the interview of those 5 candidates. We will, upon conclusion of this meeting, immediately reach out to these candidates. I assume, Yasmin, you'll be doing that, or maybe we'll follow up with what protocol is on that. But we hope to add on that agenda next Tuesday, the interview of the 5 candidates.
So that was option 5 on this week's agenda. The other piece of the agenda, Commissioner Newberg, we need to make sure we have very clear is option 8, or is the piece around the legal decision.
Correct. We will need to make sure that we have the full option on the agenda to address all legal requirements with the RFP.
Yep.
With legal. Okay. As always, commissioners, we will, aim to post this with more than 48 hours notice. So if there are additional items that come to your attention that you would like to add, please feel free to reach out to Yasmin for consideration. There's also, we're going to need to discuss the agenda item for an additional meeting potentially for next week. And let's move into item number 15, because this is a perfect segue. discussion and possible action on the scheduling of future meetings. You know, we discussed, we hopefully, if the candidates are available, we hope to interview our 5 executive director candidates on the 16th. I think personally it would be wonderful if, you know, look, in an ideal world, if 5 of us came upon a consensus candidate after those 5 interviews, fabulous. Let's leave that open as a possibility. If that does not happen, and we have additional questions that we'd like to bring the top 2 or 3 candidates back for, I think it would be in our interest to schedule a special meeting that we can do in advance. We'd have, we'd honor the open meeting laws and publish that 48 hours in advance, with the possibility of inviting back the top candidates of the 5. As we're looking at your calendars, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday if necessary, would you like to look at your calendars and see if there's consensus to what is available?
Commissioner Newberg, I am unavailable on that Thursday, the 18th.
And this is Commissioner Meal. I'm unavailable on Wednesday.
The entire day?
I have 2 major meetings on Wednesday that would be very difficult to change.
Let me ask something, because the likelihood is that we're bringing back 2 people for interviews. If you think about at most, it's a second interview, a half hour each. We're looking at most a 2-hour meeting. And if we're blocking out the entire days on Wednesday and Thursday, considering we also need staff to be part of it, it would potentially preclude us from hiring an executive director next week and pushing it off for a week.
What could I make a suggestion? If Wednesday and Thursday are unavailable for the other 2 commissioners, what if we called somebody back later that day on Tuesday? Because we're going to make, or is it because it has to be noticed? Is that it? But if we notice that we would do something at like 4 o'clock that day to bring them back, is that possible on that Tuesday, since Wednesday and Thursday are difficult other days? What about that as a suggestion? And I'm going to have to run in just a moment. I'm sorry.
Right.
Yes, that works for me.
That works for me. I mean, it's a long day for the applicants to really, but it's an interesting idea, and I'm open to it.
Friday's also available.
Yeah, I am open all day Tuesday, so I could do that, and I'm open all day Friday. Wednesday, I could make at 3:30, but I don't know that would give us enough time to do much. But I couldn't, I'd be scrambling to get open by 3:30 on Wednesday.
Well, if we are having a meeting from 9 to 12 for our interviews, then we take a few hour break and then come back together potentially at 4 o'clock, let's say, for our final 2 interviews if needed. We would then be done by 5:30 with some time to, discussion following it. It's just a thought to try to, it's a long day, but it does give the candidates a break and us in the middle. So it's just a suggestion as one option.
Commissioner Meal, I like the suggestion, Shreen, but I would recommend that we could come back at 3 o'clock. Still have a good break, and then have time for staff to be done by 5. So we're not asking them to stay later.
Good point. I'm fine with that.
That works for me.
And that works for me. I just want to be clear. I don't think we can be constrained with the number of hours with the meeting in the morning, with punting on some of the legal counsel issues. I think we should still expect a robust agenda. Look, I want to compliment my commissioners. I think we move deliberatively, expediently. I have a lot of confidence we can get things done very quickly, but don't direct that there might not be some, critical items that we're going to have to give thought. But I love the idea of getting this done next Tuesday.
And just as another note, if we wanted to, I mean, I leave my Tuesday mornings open, so I'm fine with if we wanted to start a little earlier, if we're concerned about timing at all, if we wanted to go at 8:30 or something to begin our meeting. Then if we run a little longer, and then we can end and then still have a little bit of a break and have the candidates have a little bit of a break and then come back at 3.
Just one thing to keep in mind is with the live stream, the YouTube live stream, there's a 4-hour cap that we have on our end. So we have 2 different links for the morning session and the afternoon session.
Okay.
And that'd be fine. I have a slight preference to keeping it at 9 o'clock only for the sake of staff, commissioners, and the public. I think the more we can stick to consistency, I think it's more user-friendly for our state. So if everybody's amenable, I would propose that we meet 9 a.m. on the 16th. We'll have our full, robust meeting with as views as we can hopefully accommodate. We have a 4-hour window, and then we can reconvene. Do we want to, it was suggested 3 p.m. Is that a comfortable time for the commissioners? We'll reconvene at 3 p.m. And if we can arrange the interviews, we would then request that our top candidates come back at that point for a second interview where we can address, other questions.
And Yasmin, would that be something that they could be advised that to please leave that open because they may get called back? So when they are called for the interview on Tuesday, they know that there's a potential for a second.
Yes, and I will work out the details with Chairwoman because there's a couple of questions that I have on how to get these done. So I'll follow up with you, Chairwoman.
Okay.
And I apologize, but I have to run, but you'll still have quorum because I'm now running late. But
you participated in all of the meaningful activities. Thank you so much for your flexibility and accommodation, Commissioner.
Thank you. I'll see you all next week. Thank you.
Okay, Yasmin,
this is Commissioner Meal. Let's make sure we do allow for a possible executive session discussion at that 3 o'clock meeting also, because we may do interviews and then want to go into executive session to discuss them. We may not, but let's at least put it on the notice so that is a possibility.
agreed. And you know what? Thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner Meal. In fact, we need to actually think about something important. With that second interview, are we desiring to do that in public session or in executive session?
I think it needs to be a public session, personally.
I'm good with public.
Yeah, I prefer public.
Okay, with this second session, and I'm not opposed, but we just have to understand that none of the candidates will be provided an opportunity to share any sensitive information, any sensitive conflicts of interest, any sensitive accommodations they might need. If there are sensitive questions that we have, it's just recognizing that all of that will be done in the public eye, and this is unique.
This is Commissioner Meal. I think to clarify, we want to have the ability to go into executive session either with a candidate or just as a commission. But I think we should start off with whatever second interviews being public. And then if we do have questions that need to be in executive session, we can call the executive session.
I'm not entirely sure we can do it that way. Counsel, do we need to clarify up front with the candidates whether this will be done in public or executive session? And what kind of flexibility do we have on this issue?
You're going to want to make sure that the letter, and sorry, I'm grabbing my code book. The letter that's noted under the notice to them where they choose whether or not they're going to be in executive session or open meeting is provided to them. So that fits though with the notice requirements for posting. And then I'm sorry, could you repeat the second part of that? I apologize.
Well, I think Commissioner Meal, the most important thing is that people that we invite to interview, if we were to choose to invite them to interview in executive session, I believe that they are entitled to ask to be interviewed in public. Am I correct, Pam?
Yes.
And so because of that, we need to in advance think through what our strategy is so that we give our candidates that option for what they prefer to do.
The other consideration that you may need to leave room for is whether or not a person changes their mind kind of at the 11th hour, so to speak, about interviewing in public session as well.
Yeah, because they might have a current job.
You know, here's how I'll just go first and share how I'm thinking. I mean, I have so much respect for, my 4 colleagues here who have shared my commitment to do this in as transparent and as accessible the way for our public as possible. With such a critical hire, if we're concerned about sensitive questions about conflicts of interest, and also, again, kind of just issues with accommodations that somebody might need, for the sake of hiring the best choice, as much as I'm hesitant to do things in executive session, there's something about this that feels a little bit responsible and safe. I know it's a tough choice.
If I could maybe add something, I realize very much the commission wishes to move as promptly as possible. Having an interview or the second interviews, I should say, in open session or in general, maybe some separation between the two more than a couple of hours would allow people to kind of tie up loose ends as they need to. The reality is a lot of times people do apply for jobs and they wait until it's a little more firm before they tell their current employer. So it's something to consider, even though I do fully understand you wish to move things as promptly as possible.
That's a great point, Pam, but at the end of the day, we need to move and we need the applicants to really know in their heart, is this a yes or a no? And so if they need considerable time to be reflecting on it, then they may not be the best applicant.
Commissioner Newberg, can we not give the applicant the option to whether to meet in public or to meet in executive session?
I don't know.
I'm double checking the statute right now.
Yeah. That's a very interesting idea. To defer to the preference of those who we would invite back for that final interview. And I like the idea of accommodating their preference. I think that's.
This is Commissioner Mio. I don't know why we can't just keep the flexibility and have a public notice that there's a second meeting at 3 o'clock. In that notice, say that there will be interviews and that those interviews may be public or they may be an executive session, and structure the notice that way. Send the letter to the applicant saying, if you are invited to a second interview, you may be, you'll be asked, you might be asked whether you're willing to have it in executive session or not, and have them respond as to whether they're okay with it. And that way we can go in, we can make up our mind at 3 o'clock when we start the meeting, how we want to go about it, having then heard everything we would have heard earlier in the day.
I know that sounds simple to everybody around the table, but it's actually a complicated legal. One thing that I have learned through this entire process is that every question, you know, requires consideration on a lot of different levels.
I'm still looking at this. I apologize. I have not forgotten you're here, though.
No problem, Pam.
2 minutes, 10 minutes.
While Pam is looking into this, just out of curiosity, you know, taking the pulse of my fellow 4 commissioners, what would your preference be with those second interviews in terms of executive session or in public, aside from letting the applicants choose?
Probably executive session for me, Commissioner York.
Commissioner Meal, I flatly don't know. I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah, this Commissioner Watchman, I'm torn. You know, I do believe in public transparency, and that's what we indicate that we do. You know, but however, if the candidate, you know, for whatever reason wants to have the meeting in executive session, then, you know, if it's legal, then we should try to honor that. But so I'm torn at this point. Maybe Pam will have better information for us to make a better decision.
Yeah, I lean with the Commissioner York in that, you know, I think we have bent over backwards to be as transparent and accessible as possible, and doing all of our initial interviews in the public eye is as transparent as could be. And if in our final conversations there's sensitive topics, you know, part of me feels that we have the prerogative and maybe it's appropriate to provide these avenues where our candidates can communicate more confidentially. So it's 2 to 2 where it's an open debate, and
Maybe I can provide a little more information that might be helpful, and then Ms. Guerrero will jump in if she thinks that there's something I've missed. So it is my understanding that the commission can set the parameters of the interview. So you guys can determine they're going to be in, you know, in the open meeting or an executive session. If they are an executive session, though, the applicant, by way of the letter that's sent, can request that it be held in open session, but cannot demand that it be an executive session. Now, they may make the request, and if the commission chooses to honor it, then they may do so.
I'm not sure that answers, though, Commissioner Meal's question.
And I truly apologize. Commissioner Meal, could you restate it then, just so I can make sure, because I thought that was your question.
What I asked is, could we notice the meeting so that we let the public and the applicants know that that the interviews might be conducted in public or might be an executive session, and give us the flexibility to do so, which would include sending a letter to the applicant asking if they are willing to have it in executive session instead, if we have had their permission.
The more, Oh, sorry, I thought somebody was chiming in. The more, I want to say conservative, but that's not quite the word I want to use. The more reserved approach would be to say you do it in executive session, and then everybody expects it to be an executive session. If you choose then to do it in public session, then it is more open than what people originally anticipated. So that would be permissible.
And Commissioner Meal, to accommodate, I think what you're getting at, if we were to decide to do those second interviews in executive session, the candidates would be allowed to choose to do it in public session if they preferred. So they would be allowed to choose either way through that method.
Having heard Pam on that advice, I'm fine then noticing it as executive session. I'm good with that.
What I would just add on for a suggestion is that you would want to make it clear, though, to the applicants that the commission may vote prior to do it in the open session, that it's being agendized in such a manner to allow for that. Because frankly, they may feel sandbagged, you know, if it's supposed to be in executive session, and then all of a sudden they hang up and realize, you know, the whole world's been watching.
We would never sandbag anyone, so I agree with that.
It's like a whole.
Okay, so it sounds like the consensus might be to move forward with inviting the last 2 or 3 top candidates to interview for the second time in an executive session where all candidates would be given the option to interview in public if they were to choose so. We need to actually pick a time. Oh, we're going to do it, we said, what, at 3 p.m.? Is that?
Yeah.
If it will work. Okay. So do we now need a motion to approve this? Everybody's notifications are getting loud. I think we're winding down. Do we need a motion to approve this strategy of interviewing the final candidates in executive session unless they were, well, they have the right to choose to do it in public?
And will that be with the proviso that the agenda will be noticed such that the commission may vote prior to the interview to have it in open session?
If that's allowed, then yes.
It's a question of what action you guys want to take is what needs to be voted on, and then whatever's voted on is what needs to be agendized.
Yeah, I would recommend that we move forward with authorizing an executive session interview of the final 2 to 3 candidates, unless they pursue, you know, they prefer a public interview.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, with that, we have a quorum. We'll vote. Commissioner Watchman?
Aye.
Meal?
Aye.
York?
Aye.
Newberg is an aye, and with that, we will move forward to interview in an executive session for the second round of interviews, unless the candidates decide otherwise. So with that, we'll move on to item number 16, announcements. We will reconvene next week, Tuesday, March 16th at 9 a.m. We hope to have along that agenda the interviews with our candidates. We will reach out to those candidates this afternoon. And we will reconvene at 3 p.m. for second round of interviews. And with that, we will move on to item number 17, closing of public comments. Please note, members of the commission may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431.01H, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. And with that, unless there is further comment from our staff and commissioners, I am listening. I will move to agenda item 18 after a very effective, productive meeting. Thank you, everybody. We will move to adjourn. We'll take a quick vote to adjourn. Commissioner Washington.
Aye.
Meal.
Aye.
Lerner. Oh, she's gone. York.
Aye.
Newberg. Aye. With that, we are adjourned, and thank you, everybody, for your participation and your hard work.
Thanks,
Thank
Eric.
you. So long.
Bye-bye.